The purpose of this video is to provide a structural and contextual overview of The Difference Maker by John C. Maxwell. Keep in mind the recommended breakdown of this book and how you should tackle each chapter. The questions that follow in this training app will focus on the insights and objectives that are critical to becoming a better and more successful coach and person. It's important to note that this video will not include the answers to the questions that follow. You will find the answers as you navigate the contents of this book. First, we will review the structure of The Difference Maker. Maxwell has seemed to organize the contents of his book into two separate sections, even though this is not explicitly reflected in the table of contents. The first section consists of the first 4 chapters of the book. Each chapter begins with where, what, or how. The second section contains the last 6 chapters of the book. 5 of them focuses on a specific attitude obstacle, and the last chapter is a conclusion. In the following slides, we'll dive in deeper by reviewing each chapter of Section 1, one by one. As mentioned in the previous slide, Section 1 is composed of the first 4 chapters of The Difference Maker, which are listed here on the left. I will cover each chapter of this section and point out what I believe is the most valuable and beneficial information that you should look out for as you read this book. The first chapter of this book, Where Did You Get Your Attitude?, is very important and content-rich. I recommend spending adequate focus on this part of the text as it sets up the rest of the book nicely and puts the reader in the right contextual headspace. Pay particularly close attention to how Maxwell thinks about and defines attitude, as it may be a little different than you would think. I know for me, his definition made me look at attitude in a new light. And I also recommend you focus on the 8 points that Maxwell lists, as he considers each of these to be factors that contribute to where your attitude comes from. I would like for you to compare those 8 factors to your own life and how each one has helped shape your own attitude in some way. This entire book focuses on the premise that attitude is a difference maker, but there are some things that your attitude cannot be a substitute for. This chapter will let you know 5 things that your attitude cannot make up for. Keep these in mind as you consider attitude. Attitude is important, but it's not an end-all be-all and cannot be a band-aid for larger factors. This also brings up another part of the chapter that I recommend you take note of, and that is that you cannot disconnect attitude from reality. A lot of people think if you believe it, you can achieve it, but if you're actually missing experience or capabilities or any of the other 5 factors that Maxwell lists, attitude cannot make up the difference to drive you to success. I thought this was an especially good reminder to have a realistic view of your ability. Put in the work and let attitude help you get there. Don't let it lead you with blind confidence. This chapter hones in on 4 main ways in which your attitude can make a difference. The things in which attitude can truly be a deciding factor towards. A sentence that really stood out, and that I think sums up the portion of this text, is, I cannot always choose what happens to me, but I can always choose what happens in me. So while there are some factors, like covered in the previous chapter, that your attitude cannot influence, there are some important moments and situations in which attitude can be the differentiating factor between success and failure. At this point in the book, Maxwell has laid the groundwork for what attitude is and isn't, what it can do for you and what it can't. And now he's ready to start providing some recommendations for how you can make your attitude your greatest asset. He does this by laying out 6 steps of how to choose the right track towards adopting a better attitude. This covers the immediate internal reflection one can do to evaluate and take responsibility for your current attitude, and then provides recommendations for how this can be actioned externally through the creation of habits. There's a diagram provided that depicts this in a visual way, where you can see how internal thoughts can either positively or negatively influence actions, decisions, habits, and beliefs. If you're a visual learner, this is a great representation to study. That is it for Section 1. The next video will cover the last half of The Difference Maker.